I've been receiving so many complaints recently about the lack of golf balls in my videos. Yeah, that's not the case. The real truth of it is that I actually get complaints from a very vocal minority of people that can't stand the fact that I deface golf balls and defile their pastime. If you want to know the real truth of my opinion of the subject, I think it's a frivolous recreation and a completely unnecessary expenditure of resources. But the balls themselves are very useful for crafting, and as such, I'm going to use them to put feet on the bottom of my shelf. Hey, you, a note on safety. You know I don't do it unless it's important. I never lecture safety. But when you're cutting into golf balls, they can be extremely, extremely dangerous. They have a lot of stored potential energy inside, and sometimes they have chemicals and such in them. One of them today, when I was drilling it, actually sprayed something in my face that best can be described as drywall mud. And the worst part is that this substance came out with explosive force. So, wear these things. What we'll do to limit the likelihood of being brain damaged by these things is we'll drill them first. So you need a drilling jig. Start with a 1 3/8 hole that's, I don't know, about 3/4 of an inch deep, and that will be your nest. The distance from the 2x4 block up to your chuck, to the bottom of the chuck, should be about 4 inches. That makes it so that you can get this in and out easily and still have room to maneuver. I just use this 2x4 on my drill press all the time, and then I can swap it out by... I'll actually run the drill press with this in it, and when it finds its comfortable spot, then I'll tighten down my clamps and the deck so that I know that it's perfectly stable. Then without moving anything, I swap the bit for this 1/8 inch bit. This is the brand that seems to bother people the most when I destroy them. But what they don't get is that I have a ton of them. They're not worth anything to me. Drill first. If we drill first, then we can make sure that it has a solid core. I can already tell that this has a solid core by this blue stuff that's coming out. If it's a single color and it doesn't smell like rubber bands, then it's probably safe. And by now it would have usually exhausted its liquid center if that were the case. In my experience, the newer the golf ball, the more likely it is that it's safe to use. But with unknown brands, wear safety glasses first. The hole passes the whole way through, so it establishes the north and south poles. But I want to know the equator. This board has been sized so that when I trace around it, it marks the equator for me. And now it's just a case of cutting right down the equator. There are multiple ways to do this. You might think that a Dremel would be one way or a bandsaw. You could try those things, but this way is probably the easiest and safest, in my opinion. A bandsaw would be a bad idea because it could grab it and rip it right out of your hands anyway. The hacksaw will work well enough for this case. Now, it's a little unfortunate that the vise is putting the golf ball under compression, so we're not going to cut the whole way through. I'll just score the whole way around it by cutting just halfway the thickness of the blade. Let me clarify. I'm going to sink the blade halfway in the whole way around the golf ball. please excuse the wobbly vise. I just moved here, so this is temporary. That has a pleasant smell. To be honest, that smell is exactly the same as what's in a Wilson. So if you're paying like 4 times the amount for these fancy golf balls, you're a chump. Some tricks here. Use the full length of the blade and press on the backstroke also, because it cleans the teeth out. You'll feel when it's about to give. If you're not very good with a hacksaw, actually, even if you are good with a hacksaw, it still has some blade wobble, so it will drift. And that's, in order to limit that, that's why we only cut in a little bit all the way around. You define the parameter of your cut, and then you use it to establish itself the whole way through, if that makes sense. Okay, now we'll do the fine tuning over there. So, in conclusion, having seen the insides of perhaps a few hundred golf balls, if I were to be asked to speculate what the difference is between regular cheapo golf balls and the expensive ones, the expensive ones have flavor crystals inside. Either that or more likely ground up pieces of old golf ball. If I were to guess, I would say that pretty much all modern golf balls are made the same. They're at near an optimum. But I would also venture to guess that just as well-witchers and expensive wine drinkers have those well-formulated rationalizations, I would guess that most of you expensive golf ball buyers also have similar stories to back up your purchase. But I'm not judging. I mean, hey, you're talking to a guy who's actually using his time to cut golf balls in half, so who am I to say anything about what frivolous recreations are, right? Okay, back to the project. The last step is to make a little countersink here to accept the screw. I'll be attaching it this way. To do that, I'll use a 5/16 paddle bit, or spade bit it's called. Why am I using a spade bit and not a regular drill bit? Because a regular drill bit is too grabby and it will catch the golf ball and spin it and yank it out of your hands. And a 5/16 Forstner bit is just too rare. The countersink is about halfway through what remains of the golf ball. And I'm not going to abuse this one, but I will, however, abuse my prototype and show you why I'm doing this. Well, first of all, golf ball is tough stuff. And of course, it's designed to withstand impact. But it's soft. So on the bottom of a shelf, like the one that I'm making, it won't matter if the shelf gets dragged all over the place. But as a foot for furniture, it's also moisture resistant, and so it will keep the wood from wicking any moisture up from the floor. Well, that's all that I have for you. This was just a diversion from my main project, which is the shelf that these are going to be attached to. So I'm going back to that, and you're welcome to join me if you want. Therefore, this is the end, and yet somehow the story goes on, and on, and on, and on. See ya.